78 Sports TV here. So I'm checking out my boy Boxing Beats and Rhymes page.
Doing it from Boxing Beats and Rhymes channel.
This is Tony talking. Chilling with Boxing Beats and Rhymes. Everyone you chilling with Boxing Beats and Rhymes. This is that mere hardcore man store on Boxing Beats and Rhymes YouTube channel.
I don't know if you want to answer. Possible Manny Pacquiao fight with Floyd Mayweather. How you feel about that?
Well, basically, it's a fight that still has the potential to happen.
I decided to do a series about dysfunctional boxers. It works in a combination of different ways. Boxing, as a concept, relies on dysfunctional young men from mainly impoverished backgrounds, mostly inner cities, to do the heavy lifting. Without them, there would be no boxers. Without the working class or just the downright impoverished young male, regardless of color, there would be no boxing. There would be no boxing. Yeah? There ain't nobody coming out of Eton with Boris Johnson and David Cameron with any pugilistic merit. There just isn't. They have no reason to do that. So it's either a case that the dysfunctional, disconnected young male finds boxing, or the nature of boxing, the frustration, the skullduggery, not getting your dues, getting overlooked, missing money, doing everything you're told by your promoters and managers and not getting your return back for your investment, which is, the potential loss of your life or your physical well-being. Just the neurological argument actually makes these young men defected, and maybe more so defected than when they actually initially came in the game. So we start with the series here. We start with Tony Ayala Jr. That sounded like Ferdy Pacheco on the commentary. I remembered this fight. I just couldn't piece together exactly what happened. You can hear, if you can hear on the audio, it's not that clear, but, what basically happened was Ayala stopped Robbie Epps. Referee jumped in and stopped it. Ayala starts celebrating, and he's looking at Robbie Epps, and he goes to attack him more. Like, he wanted to stop him twice. The guy was just an animal. Tony is the brother of former boxers Mike Ayala, Sammy Ayala, and the son of the trainer Tony Ayala Sr. When he was 15, he attacked and assaulted a girl in the bathroom of a drive-in theater in San Antonio. Tony admitted to using heroin before a fight on 3 different occasions. His brother had similar admissions before world title fights against Danny Lopez, Michael Katz, a famed boxing writer, and Angelo Dundee said they thought Ayala could have made it to the very top and been one of the greatest. He fought on the undercard of Hearns and Leonard. That was in 1981. It was not to be, though. In 1983, he burglarized the home of his neighbor, a young school teacher, and sexually assaulted her brutally. He was only 19 years of age. He was sentenced to 35 years. Ayala had already been convicted twice of assaults against women. One of these attacks took place in the restroom of a drive-in a theater and left the victim with a broken back. He had been given probation for these offenses. He came back in 1999, resumed his boxing career, winning 6 high-profile fights. He quit against Yuri Boy Campus. Prison failed to rehabilitate him. He was shot in the shoulder by a young woman after breaking into her home. And it's inconceivable what he would have done if she didn't shoot him. He received probation and a brief jail term for this offense. In 2003, Ayala was charged with having sex with a 13-year-old girl, but the charges were dismissed when the girl said she lied about it. In 2004, Ayala was sentenced to 10 years in prison for violation of probation after he was pulled over for speeding with no license, heroin possession, and possession of pornography in his vehicle. Released in 2014, he didn't grant anybody no interviews and he didn't make any appearances or public statements during his second incarceration. The last time he was seen in anything remotely like a public setting was at his father's funeral this year. Apparently he is assisting his brothers Paulie and Mikey and Sammy in running the Zarzamora street gym in San Antonio following his father's death. What Wikipedia doesn't tell you is how he spit on opponents after he knocked them out. He was just in an absolute rage. And yes, Jose Luis Baltazar is the guy. Like, he had Baltazar down on the floor and he spit on the guy. He spit on him and Baltazar tried to get up, but he was so hurt he couldn't even do anything. It was just this was an angry boxer. And it wasn't meant to be. It wasn't meant to be. Apparently, I've heard, and don't quote me on this, because if I'm wrong, and I will take it back. He was sexually molested when he was young. I'm not sure who by. I'm going to do a little digging. I'm just going to Google it now and see what I can get. Between the ages of 9 and 11, he was sexually molested by a male family friend. Soon afterward, he began shooting up heroin and drinking. By the time he was 13, Ayala was knocking out servicemen at Kelly Air Force Base near his hometown, San Antonio. And there you go. Tony Ayala, folks. Tony Ayala.
I was getting bashed in the face at 7 years of age. Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday morning. Boof. Boof. Bashed in the face, learning how to box. How can your dad love you if he lets this happen to you 2 or 3 times a week?
Paul Sykes, who passed away about 6 years ago, was a British heavyweight. And if I remember, I'll leave his little documentary series that they've put on YouTube. I'll leave all the episodes in the description box. This dude, you know, he spent about 20 years off and on in prison. You know, some stretches were up to 6 years. He beat up screws, other prison inmates. As a pro, you know, he was gaining a reputation as a puncher, you know, winning most of his fights by KO. Then he took on John L. Gardner for the British and Commonwealth title. John L. Gardner, for British level, was a good British champion. And Gardner beat him down. He turned away from action, and they were saying that he was going to do damage beforehand, you know. And Paul Sykes, man, just a crazy dude, man. Absolutely crazy dude. He worked as a debt collector and stuff like that, and you can hear him in the series, how he threatened to do certain things just to intimidate the people and make them give up the money. He apparently used to go into pubs and fight in pubs and stuff, and he'd go up to you and see your pint of beer there, and he'd spit in the beer. So then he'd drink it. And apparently one time he did that. He spat in somebody's beer, and when he came outside the pub, he got beaten up badly. He got beaten up really badly. And his dad made him box from young, and as you can hear by the clip there, he used to rough him up. He used to rough him up quite a lot when he was 7. And obviously, you know, it was a very dysfunctional childhood. Very dysfunctional childhood. And, you know, you can see he's not quite the full ticket. You know what I mean? Not quite the full ticket, you know? And he has 2 sons. He has 2 sons who, I'm going to watch the documentary again, but apparently they're both in jail for murder, his 2 sons. So the cycle just continued in that family there. And, yes, very dysfunctional. Very dysfunctional. Paul Sykes.
Well, from the outset, I'd say that Sonny Liston belongs among the 5 greatest heavyweights of all time.
Sonny Charles Liston. Man, I can do his story nearly basically off the top of my head. I have to read a couple of notes, but he was born in Arkansas in 1932, which was, you know, I'm not saying today, but back then, that would have been considered a redneck state. Very racially orientated state. And they didn't make it easy on blacks, and that's just fact. So, you know, you guys could go, hey, he's talking racism. That's just how it was. You know, I wasn't born then. I didn't make the rules. That's just how it was. Severe conditions of poverty. The family worked in cotton fields. And Liston's dad was an alcoholic, very violent, abusive man who used to brutalize Sonny and work him hard on the cotton fields from when he was very young. Liston's mother left his dad Sonny later on tried to find his mother and ran away at age 13. I think he either seeked out his mother or his aunt. And he found his aunt in St. Louis, Missouri. Liston was just a naturally big teenager and encountered a lot of problems, you know. Got in a lot of trouble with the police. One policeman's knee got broken in an encounter. He put another policeman headfirst into a dustbin or a trash can. He was incarcerated many times, or at least a few times, about 19 arrests. And this just followed him all through his life. I think in either one gym or in one prison, they had a boxing club which was controlled by the mob. Frankie Carbo, Blinky Palermo, and them dudes. And at least a good few of his fights were controlled by the mob. A good few. I haven't got all the exact details. They didn't want Liston to have a shot at the title, but Floyd Patterson eventually bowed down to the fact that he deserved a shot, and Liston KO'd him twice in 2 fights consecutively. When Liston won the title, he was living in Chicago at the time, and he thought to himself winning the title would gain him some kind of respectability, and his past would start sliding behind him. And he thought when he got off the airplane in Chicago, there'd be a big welcoming party of journalists and people welcoming the champ. But he got there and there was barely no one there. There was barely no one there. And they say you could visibly see the disappointment. He was sent to a St. Louis workhouse for assaulting a policeman and stealing the officer's gun after his release from prison. That was after about 9 fights into his career. And in the film, Sonny was depicted as a debt collector for the mob and enforcer. One of the mob workers, I'm not sure if he was quite a boss, but he idolized Sonny and he was always with Sonny. And in the film, it depicted Sonny banging his woman, banging the mobster's woman, you know. If that's true or not. And they said that the guy found out somehow and he set Sonny up to get murdered by the mob. Sonny was apparently scared of needles, had a phobia of needles, but it suggested that needle marks were found in his arm, suggesting that it could have been a heroin overdose. Some believe that the mobsters murdered him and that he was involved in a loan sharking ring and was demanding a bigger stake, and it just got too heavy for him. But regardless of how he died, that rogue element in his life just never left him from day one, you know, from day one. When I look at pictures of Sonny, I always see this sadness in his eyes, this sadness, just, you know. He just wanted people to leave him alone. Apparently, he actually wasn't a bully. He was, just leave me alone. Just let me be, you know what I mean? But his life just never afforded him that luxury to develop that way. And he came in the game relatively dysfunctional. And being around all that fame and the mob who ran the game back then just didn't help any of them defects. It really didn't.
That's it, folks. The champion continues to reign. Edwin Valero, another successful title defense as he stops young Tony DeMarco and retains his WBC lightweight title.
When Edwin Valero was still alive, I remember watching a documentary on him, and he brutalized his sparring partner. Like, he had this guy on the ropes, and these weren't sparring partner punches, like, and this he could punch, man. 27 fights, 27 stoppages, 19 first round KOs, and he just buckled his sparring partner in with these bombs. Ruthless, just a ruthless fighter, and you could see he was emotionless about it. You know, he didn't have no regard for the well-being of his sparring partner. You know, none at all. You know, so we're talking about a vicious guy. A vicious dude. So, I've gone to Wikipedia for the majority of this one, you know. Edwin was the WBA World Super Featherweight Champion and the WBC Lightweight Champion. Edwin, you know, in 2004, he failed an MRI due to brain scan irregularities in New York, and he was not allowed to fight in the US. Although looking at his box rec there are fights in the US, you know, in Texas, you know, maybe he got away with it there. But for the most part, no, he couldn't fight in America. Apparently he fractured his skull in a motorcycle accident That was in 2001, and he wasn't wearing a helmet. You know, like anyone riding a motorbike with no helmet. Like, I ride a mountain bike a lot, and I have to get a helmet for some reason. You know, because I've never wore a helmet, I have to buy a helmet. I have to stop assuming that I'm never gonna get into an accident on my bike, and that helmet might save my life. So, you know, in 2009, Valero had been arrested on assault charges. A man alleged that the boxer attacked his mother and sister over a feud. Valero denied the allegations and considered them an attempt to harm his reputation. In 2010, he was again accused of assault, this time by his wife, who went to hospital for bruises and a damaged lung. Valero denied once again any wrongdoing, stated his wife stumbled from a stairway, but investigators doubted that. His wife later told authorities that her injuries were caused by an accident on some stairs, despite the fact that she had been treated for similar injuries twice before at the hospital. Because of the vicious personality he showed at the hospital where his wife was treated, Valero was sent for 6 months of psychiatric rehabilitation. Shortly after that, on the 18th of April 2010, Valero was arrested after police found the body of his 24-year-old wife, Carolina, in a hotel in Valencia, Carabobo, Venezuela, I'm assuming. Valero was considered a suspect and was taken to jail. Valero allegedly admitted to hotel security and police that he had murdered his wife. The next day, he was found hanging in his prison cell by his pants. He was pronounced legally dead at 1:30 a.m. Sadly, there's actually pictures. I haven't looked at it again, you know. I stumbled on them by accident of his wife and her body being mutilated and blood everywhere, and you know, it wasn't a nice sight. It wasn't a nice sight at all. And well, you could say the motorcycle injury initially could have caused the start of the landslide for Edwin. You know, you could say that. But going into boxing after the initial head injury, it's not going to do you any favors in enhancing your neurological health. Me and you know that. We both know that. So, Edwin is another statistic in the Dysfunction in Boxing series. And there you go.